Think of the most impossible boss fight. The heroes are hopelessly outnumbered. The enemy is endless, and you're just waiting for a tragedy. Now, what if I told you that scenario happened in real life? But the hero had only 13 broken ships. And his enemy, an armada of over 300. This isn't fantasy. This is history. You probably think Admiral Nelson or Sir Francis Drake were the greatest naval commanders. That's what we're all taught. But what if the most dominant, perfect admiral in history, with a perfect 23-0 record, is someone you've never even heard of? Why don't our textbooks mention his name? Because sometimes the most incredible stories get buried. Hi, my name is David. I've spent my career studying the greatest strategists, Napoleon, Nelson, Caesar. But a while back, I stumbled on a name. Not in my textbooks, Yi Sun-sin. What I found didn't just add to my knowledge. It shattered my definition of victory. Today, I'm telling the story of the one man who changes everything. Today, I'm dismantling the 3 biggest myths about this hero. We'll uncover the impossible strategy. He used to turn 13 ships into an unstoppable weapon. And at the end, I'll share the powerful underdog secret he mastered, a mindset you can apply to your own impossible battles. To understand his genius, picture this 1597. Korea is on fire, ravaged by a brutal Japanese invasion. The people are starving. The king, Seon-jo, has fled. The entire nation is collapsing. The only thing holding Japan back is the Korean Navy, and the man leading that Navy, Admiral Yi. He's not in command. He's been betrayed. He's in a prison cell, arrested by his own side, falsely accused of being a traitor. His nation is burning, and their only hope is locked away, treated worse than an animal, waiting to be executed. This is myth number 1, that Yi was a celebrated, loved national hero. The truth is darker. His greatest enemies weren't the Japanese military. They were in his own government. He was jailed, tortured, and stripped of his rank. Why? Because he was dangerous. But honestly, this wasn't new to him. This was a man of terrifying integrity. As a child, he'd stop war games if the rules weren't fair. As a young officer, he refused a bribe from a superior and was nearly fired for it. This unbending principle, this inability to compromise with injustice, made him the perfect hero and the perfect target. His rivals, like the incompetent Admiral Won-Gyun, were jealous. And the King Seon-jo, was weak and paranoid. He saw Yi's popularity as a threat. So when his rivals set a trap, an obvious ambush, the king ordered Yi to sail into it. Yi, being a brilliant strategist, refused. It was suicide. That's what they were waiting for. They called his caution treason. And while Yi was locked away, the king put Won-Gyun in command. In a single afternoon, Won-Gyun led the entire Korean fleet, all 160 warships, straight into that trap. It wasn't a battle. It was a slaughter. The Battle of Myeongnyang. The entire Korean Navy was annihilated. Wiped from the sea, the king panicked. His shield was gone. He freed the man he had just tortured and begged him to save the nation. Yi was reinstated as admiral. Admiral of what? He arrived to find only ashes and 13 broken ships. The king told him to abandon the sea. It was a logical order. But Yi, the man who had been betrayed, jailed, and left with nothing, sent back a response that defines history. Your Majesty, I still have 13 ships. He sailed those 13 ships to face an enemy armada of over 300. The odds were impossible. So, how? Now we come to myth number 2. Everyone thinks it was the famous turtle ship. This is false. The turtle ships were his invention. But at this point, they were all gone, sunk at Myeongnyang. He had nothing but 13 wooden ships and terrified men. So what was the secret? It wasn't a weapon. It was a mind. It was 3 things. First, strategic genius. He didn't fight in the open sea. He chose a narrow, straight Myeongnyang, a natural death trap so narrow the 300-ship armada couldn't attack all at once. Second, mastery of environment. Myeongnyang had one of the fastest, most violent tidal currents in the world. Most sailors avoided it. He planned to weaponize the tide itself. Third, psychological warfare. He gathered his terrified captains. They were weeping. He didn't promise them victory. He gave them a new mindset. He transformed their terror into focus. The morning of the battle, the fog lifts. The horizon is black with 300 enemy ships. And there is Yi, on his flagship, with 12 other ships hanging back. Paralyzed by fear, the Japanese fleet charges, and Yi's own captains refuse to advance. They just watch. Admiral Yi's flagship is alone. He's surrounded. Dozens of ships swarm his single vessel. His men are screaming, and Yi is calm. He holds the line. one against dozens. But he can't last. He turns his ship, sails towards his own fleet, and executes a captain for cowardice. He shames them. He roars at them. And it works. Inspired, the other 12 ships finally join the fight. And that is when the tide shifted. The screaming current of Myeongnyang, which had been flowing against Yi, suddenly stopped and began to move backwards, exactly as he had calculated. The tide became his weapon. It smashed the enemy fleet into itself. It was chaos. The 13 Korean ships were like wolves in a panicked herd. Japanese records from the time don't call him a man. They call him a god of the sea. By the end of the day, 31 Japanese warships were sunk. Their admiral was dead. The entire invasion was halted. And Admiral Yi, he didn't lose a single ship. He saved his nation. Again, this wasn't his last victory. The war was almost over. The Japanese were in full retreat. He could have let them go, but he knew. If he let them go, they would come back. His mission was to end it. And so, in his final battle at Myeongnyang, he led the charge. He won his 23rd victory. But in that final fight, he was struck by a bullet. He was dying. He knew it. But the battle was still raging. His men might panic. So, with his last breath, he looked at his son and whispered, "Do not announce my death. Keep beating the war drum. We must finish this fight." He was a strategist. To his final breath, his focus was never on himself. It was on the mission. So, what was the underdog's secret I promised? This is myth number 3. It wasn't the ships. It wasn't the tide. It was his desperate focus mindset. We know this from his diary. The Unsung, now a UNESCO World Heritage Record. It's a blueprint for resilience. Facing those 300 ships, he wrote the phrase that defines him. "He who is willing to die will live, and he who is merely trying to live will die." Think about what that means. This is not fatalism. It is liberation. When you fully accept the worst-case scenario, fear loses its power over you. You are no longer reacting to fear, you are acting on purpose. He didn't focus on the odds. He didn't focus on the injustice. He accepted death, and in doing so, he liberated his mind to focus with desperate clarity only on the mission. That is how you win an impossible fight. So forget the myths. Remember the man who was betrayed by his king, but returned to save his people with 13 ships against 300. His story isn't just a forgotten piece of history. It's a timeless lesson in resilience. It asks us a question we must all answer. When you are betrayed, when you are left with nothing, when you face your own 13 verse 300 in your life, what do you choose? Do you focus on the injustice, or do you focus on your mission? Think about it and share this story with someone who needs to hear this message. Let this hidden legends legacy be your guide. I'll see you in the next episode.
What do you choose?